You're walking through the airport, boarding pass in hand, thinking you've got this travel thing figured out. But what you don't see coming is the psychological chess match that's about to begin. Immigration and customs officers aren't just checking documents. They're reading you, testing you, and using techniques designed to catch you off guard. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal the 7 hidden tactics they use to trick travelers every single day. Miss these, and you could find yourself in that back room wondering what went wrong. Let's dive in. Way number 7. The technology trap: when your own devices betray you. Picture this. You're standing at the immigration counter, confident and calm. The officer smiles and points to a small camera. "Just look here for a moment," they say casually. You comply, thinking it's routine. What you don't realize is that you've just been enrolled in a facial recognition system without your explicit consent. Here's what's really happening behind that friendly request. Facial recognition technology is now operational in over 200 airports across the United States, and it's fast becoming the default method for identity verification. But here's the trick. If you don't clearly opt out, the system automatically scans and stores your biometric data. The officer already knows you have the right to refuse. They're trained on this. But they're also trained not to volunteer that information unless you specifically ask. Why? Because the system works faster when travelers comply without question. They're banking on your assumption that it's mandatory. Imagine you're uncomfortable with biometric scanning for privacy reasons. You stand there, unsure, while the line builds behind you. The pressure mounts. The officer maintains that neutral smile, waiting. Most travelers cave and just go along with it because they don't want to cause a scene or delay their journey. But here's the twist. Most travelers never learn. Opting out is your legal right, but it comes with consequences. When you refuse facial recognition, you're flagged for manual processing. That means longer wait times, additional questions, and sometimes secondary screening. The system is designed to make compliance the path of least resistance. And it's not just facial recognition. Officers can now compel you to unlock your phone or laptop using biometric methods, your fingerprint or face scan. But here's what they won't tell you. They cannot force you to provide passwords or PINs. That's still protected. Yet most travelers don't know this distinction and hand over their unlocked devices without question. The smart move? Know your rights before you travel. If you're comfortable with biometric scanning, proceed normally. If not, politely tell the officer you'd like to opt out and be prepared for additional processing time. And remember, biometrics can unlock your devices, but passwords cannot be compelled. Way number 6. The repetitive question. Trappies, when they ask the same thing 5 different ways. You've just answered where you're staying. Clear, confident answer. But then, 10 minutes later, the officer asks about your accommodation again, slightly differently. Then again, and again. Your heart starts racing. Are they testing your memory? Did you say something wrong? Welcome to the repetitive question trap, one of the most psychologically effective techniques in the immigration playbook. Here's the secret behind this strategy. Officers use multiple questions on similar topics as a deliberate method to catch inconsistencies in your story. The theory is simple. If someone is lying, they can only be coached to a certain extent. By continuing to ask variations of the same question, they're waiting for you to slip up, contradict yourself, or show signs of stress. Picture this scenario. They ask where you're staying. You say, "The Marriott downtown." Later, they ask about your hotel. You say, "The Marriott on 5th Street." Then they ask about your accommodation address. You pause, trying to remember if you said downtown or 5th Street. That pause, that's what they're looking for. The psychological pressure is intentional. Each repeated question increases your stress level, making you more likely to make mistakes or reveal information you hadn't planned to share. It's not about the information itself. It's about your reaction to providing it multiple times. But here's what experienced travelers know. Consistency is your shield. If you're telling the truth, your answers should naturally align, even when asked differently. The key is staying calm and not overthinking why they're asking similar questions. The trap many travelers fall into is trying to provide more detail each time, thinking they need to elaborate or clarify. This often leads to contradictions. Instead, stick to your original answer. If they ask where you're staying 3 different ways, give the same core information each time. Remember this: they're not testing your memory, they're testing your honesty. If your story is true, repetition shouldn't be a problem. Stay steady, stay consistent, and don't let the psychological pressure make you second-guess yourself. Way number 5: the friendly information gatherer, when nice means something else. The officer leans back in their chair, smiles warmly, and starts what feels like a casual conversation. "So, tell me about your trip." Sounds exciting? Their tone is friendly, almost conversational. You relax, thinking you've got a nice officer who's genuinely interested in your travels. That's exactly what they want you to think. This is the information gathering disguise, and it's one of the most effective psychological techniques in modern border control. Officers are specifically trained to use a friendly, non-accusatory approach because it makes travelers feel comfortable and more likely to reveal information they wouldn't share under pressure. Here's what's really happening. While you're chatting about your vacation plans, the officer is conducting a systematic information gathering operation. They're listening for inconsistencies, gaps in your story, or details that don't align with your documentation. But because the conversation feels natural, you're more likely to speak freely and potentially say something that raises red flags. Imagine this. You mention you're visiting friends and the officer asks, "Oh, how did you meet them?" Seems like innocent small talk, right? But now they're building a profile of your connections in the country. You mention you met online, and suddenly they're interested in how long you've known them, whether you've met in person before, and what you plan to do together. The trap is that this conversational style produces more accurate information and reveals more cues to deception than confrontational methods. When people feel comfortable, they talk more. When they talk more, they reveal more. And when they reveal more, officers have more material to work with. But here's the twist. This technique is so effective that it can catch even honest travelers off guard. You might mention something innocent that sounds suspicious when taken out of context, or you might provide more detail than necessary, creating opportunities for follow-up questions you weren't prepared for. The smart approach: be polite but purposeful. Answer their questions directly and completely, but don't feel obligated to elaborate or provide your life story. Remember, this isn't a social conversation. It's an official interview disguised as one. Stay friendly, stay honest, but stay focused on the essential information they need. Way number 4: the unpredictable question strategy, when they throw you a curveball. You've prepared for the standard questions: purpose of visit, length of stay, where you're staying. You've got your answers ready. Then the officer hits you with something completely unexpected. What's your favorite restaurant in your hometown? Or tell me about your job responsibilities. Your mind goes blank. Why are they asking this? Welcome to Conversational Content Elicitation, or CCE, the modern evolution of border interrogation that's designed to catch you completely off guard. Here's the psychology behind this technique. Traditional, predictable questions allow people to prepare rehearsed answers. But unpredictable, open-ended questions force you to think on your feet and provide spontaneous responses. When you're caught off guard, you're more likely to reveal authentic information, or inconsistencies if you're being deceptive. Picture this scenario. You've claimed you're a marketing manager visiting for business. The officer suddenly asks, "What marketing campaigns have you worked on recently?" If you're telling the truth, you'll naturally provide specific examples. If you're lying about your job, you'll likely stumble, provide vague answers, or show visible stress. The research behind this is staggering. Studies show that this unpredictable questioning technique exposes deceptive cover stories over 20 times more often than traditional methods, identifying 66% of deceivers versus just 3% with old-school interrogation techniques. But here's where honest travelers get caught in the crossfire. Even truthful people can be thrown off by unexpected questions, especially when they're tired, stressed, or in an unfamiliar environment. You might know everything about your job, but when asked to explain it under pressure at an immigration counter, you might stumble over words or provide unclear answers. The officer is listening for depth and consistency in your responses. They want to hear natural, detailed answers that demonstrate genuine knowledge and experience. Vague, rehearsed-sounding responses raise red flags, even if you're telling the truth. Here's your defense strategy. Stay authentic. Don't try to anticipate every possible question. It's impossible. Instead, focus on being genuinely yourself. If they ask about your job, talk about it the way you would to a friend. If they ask about your hometown, share real details. Authenticity is harder to fake than rehearsed answers, and it's what they're listening for. Remember, the goal isn't to trick honest travelers, it's to identify deceptive ones. If you're being truthful, these unexpected questions should feel manageable, even if they catch you off guard initially. Way number 3, the micro-hesitation test, when split seconds matter. The officer asks for your passport. Simple request, right? But in that moment, they're not just waiting for a document. They're conducting a real-time psychological assessment. How quickly do you respond? Do your eyes dart away? Does your voice crack when you say, "Here it is"? Those micro moments reveal more than you realize. Immigration officers are trained to spot micro-hesitations, those half seconds of panic or uncertainty that suggest something might be off. It's less about your passport and more about your composure. Every gesture, every pause, every flicker of expression is being analyzed. Here's what they're really watching for. When you hand over your passport, do you fumble through your bag with papers falling everywhere? Do you avoid eye contact? Does your voice change when you speak? These aren't conscious behaviors. They're stress responses that happen automatically when people feel uncertain or anxious. Picture this. You reach for your passport, but it's buried in your backpack. You start digging, muttering, "Just a second, I know it's here somewhere." Your stress level rises as you feel the officer watching. Finally, you find it, but your hands are slightly shaking as you hand it over. In that instant, your stress has become their suspicion. The truth is, airports run on perception. Officers make split-second judgments based on your behavior in those first few moments of interaction. If you appear calm and in control, you signal that you're a routine traveler who knows what they're doing. If you seem flustered or uncertain, you've just raised a red flag. But here's the catch. Even honest travelers can display these stress signals simply because airports are inherently stressful environments. You might be nervous about flying, worried about missing your connection, or just tired from a long journey. Unfortunately, officers can't read your mind to know the difference between travel anxiety and deceptive behavior. The smart move is preparation and practice. Keep your passport easily accessible, not buried in your bag, not stuffed in a jacket pocket. When asked for it, hand it over calmly and confidently. Make natural eye contact. Speak clearly. These simple behaviors signal competence and honesty. Remember, every second you appear calm tells the officer, this traveler knows what they're doing. The faster you look like someone who belongs in that line, the faster those glass doors open for you. Way number 2, the psychological pressure cooker when they turn up the heat. You're in secondary screening now. The room is smaller, quieter, more intense. The officer's demeanor has shifted from friendly to serious. They start asking rapid-fire questions, sometimes interrupting your answers. The pressure is mounting, and you can feel yourself starting to crack. This isn't an accident. It's a calculated strategy. Here's what's happening. Officers use psychological pressure tactics designed to break down your composure and force you to reveal information you might otherwise keep private. The theory is that guilty parties will eventually crack under pressure, while innocent travelers will remain consistent despite the stress. The techniques are subtle but effective. They might use intimidation through body language, leaning forward, maintaining intense eye contact, speaking in a more authoritative tone. They might create time pressure by mentioning your flight departure or suggesting that cooperation will speed up the process. They might even use vague threats about consequences if you don't provide satisfactory answers. Picture this scenario. You're asked to explain your travel plans in detail. As you're speaking, the officer interrupts with, "That doesn't make sense," or, "Are you sure about that?" Even if your explanation is perfectly reasonable, the interruption creates doubt and pressure. You start second-guessing yourself, wondering if you said something wrong. One of the most dangerous pressure tactics involves forms and documents. Officers might present you with forms to sign, suggesting it's routine paperwork that will help resolve the situation quickly. But some of these forms, like Form Y407, can result in voluntarily giving up your residency status. The pressure to sign and move on can lead to life-changing mistakes. Here's the psychological trap. Under pressure, people often say things they don't mean or agree to things they don't understand. The stress response can impair judgment and make you more compliant, even when compliance isn't in your best interest. But experienced travelers know the secret. Pressure tactics work best on people who have something to hide. If you're being honest and have proper documentation, you can weather the psychological storm. The key is staying calm, sticking to the truth, and not letting the pressure make you change your story or agree to things you don't understand. Remember, you have rights even in secondary screening. You can ask for clarification before signing any documents. You can request to speak with a supervisor if you feel you're being treated unfairly. Don't let psychological pressure push you into decisions you'll regret. Way number 1, the cross-reference trap, when your digital trail betrays you. Here's the ultimate trick that catches more travelers than any other. Officers already know most of your information before you even open your mouth. Your flight booking, seat assignment, hotel reservations, even who checked in next to you. It's all in their system. They're not asking questions to learn about you. They're asking to see if your answers match their data. This is the cross-reference trap, and it's the most sophisticated psychological technique in modern border control. Picture this. The officer asks where you're staying. You confidently answer, the Hilton downtown. But their screen shows you booked the Marriott on 5th Street. Maybe you changed hotels and forgot to update your travel information. Maybe you're staying at the Hilton, but booked the Marriott for a friend. Doesn't matter. The discrepancy has just flagged you as potentially deceptive. Here's what's really happening behind that computer screen. Immigration systems now link your arrival information with booking data, credit card records, previous travel history, and even social media activity in some cases. They can see if you've overstayed visas before, if your financial situation matches your stated travel plans, and whether your story aligns with your digital footprint. The psychological brilliance of this system is that it turns routine questions into verification tests. When they ask, "Are you traveling alone?" they already know if someone shares your itinerary. When they ask about your return flight, they can see your booking details. They're not gathering information, they're testing your honesty. But here's where innocent travelers get caught. Life is messy, and travel plans change. You might have booked one hotel, but switched to another. You might have originally planned to travel with someone who canceled. You might have changed your return flight after booking. These legitimate changes can create discrepancies that look suspicious to officers who don't know the full story. The trap deepens when officers use this information strategically. They might ask about details they already know to test your memory and consistency. If you can't remember exactly which hotel you booked 3 months ago, or if you give a slightly different version of your travel plans, you've just failed their verification test. Here's your defense. Before traveling, review all your booking information and make sure you can accurately describe your current plans. If you've made changes, be prepared to explain them clearly. Keep confirmation emails and booking details accessible on your phone. The goal is to ensure your verbal answers match your digital trail. Remember, this isn't about catching criminals. It's about identifying inconsistencies that might indicate deception. If your story is true and your information is accurate, the cross-reference system actually works in your favor, confirming your credibility. The ultimate truth about immigration and customs is this. They're not trying to trick honest travelers. They're trying to identify dishonest ones. But their techniques are so sophisticated that even truthful people can get caught in the psychological web if they're not prepared. Conclusion. And there you have it. The 7 psychological tactics that immigration and customs officers use every single day. From the technology trap that enrolls you in biometric systems without clear consent, to the cross-reference trap that turns your own digital trail into a verification test. These techniques are designed to separate honest travelers from those with something to hide. But here's the secret that changes everything. Once you understand the game, you stop feeling like a suspect and start moving like a seasoned traveler. These officers aren't your enemies, They're doing a job that requires them to make quick decisions about thousands of people every day. Their techniques work because most travelers don't understand what's really happening. Your best defense is preparation, honesty, and composure. Keep your documents organized, know your travel plans, and stay calm under pressure. Remember, confidence isn't just helpful, it's your passport through the psychological maze of modern border control. If this video helped you see behind the curtain of airport security, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's traveling soon. They'll thank you when they breeze through immigration like a pro. Hit that like button, subscribe for more insider travel secrets, and turn on notifications because next week, we're revealing what really happens when you're selected for that dreaded secondary screening. Until then, safe travels, and remember, knowledge is your clearance,